Hello everybody and welcome to the channel. It's Paulie, Esther here, and today we got a blog post from the devs. It's a designer notes blog post on the official forums about the PTB coming tomorrow, and it's going to include changes to the Doctor, the Gatekeeper Emblem scoring system, and Hex Ruin. So let's get started and read all about it. So if we click the link here for the official forums for the designer notes, it says Designer Notes, Doctor, Gatekeeper, and Hex Ruin. Welcome to our Designer Notes, a series of blog posts presenting the fine details of upcoming design changes. Today we'll be going over the first update of 2020, which includes changes to the Doctor, the Gatekeeper Emblem, and Hex Ruin. Doctor update. In the next mid-chapter update, we'll be changing core elements of the Doctor's gameplay. He's been a polarizing figure since his release, and we felt it was time to revisit his kit with an eye to making it less frustrating to play against him. We'll keep his core identity as a killer who shocks people with electricity and causes them to go insane, suffering several different kinds of afflictions and hallucinations. Some of his abilities and most of his add-ons will get an update pass. We identified a major source of irritation to be his static field. The problem is that the Doctor gets periodic notifications of survivors' locations in his terror radius due to their madness levels increasing passively. It's the lack of action needed on the part of the Doctor to find nearby survivors that make it feel annoying to play against. With that in mind, the update centers around removing static fields and replacing it with another ability. The new ability replacing static field is called Static Blast. This is mapped to the active ability button. After charging the ability for a short duration, it releases a blast of static electricity throughout the Doctor's entire terror radius. Any survivors caught in the area of effect are shocked, causing them to scream and acquire an amount of madness. If their madness level increases, they will also reveal their location to the Doctor as usual. Unless you got Calm Spirit. While charging Static Blast, the Doctor's movement is significantly reduced, and the ability has a long cooldown. The idea behind the design of Static Blast is to make it powerful as a location tool, but very difficult to use while in a chase, hence the limitations on its use. As Shock Therapy and Static Blast are now linked to separate inputs, we've removed the different treatment and punishment stances to improve the gameplay flow. The Doctor's base movement speed is still 4.6 meters per second, the regular movement speed for most of our killers, but he can now use Shock Therapy more easily, and he doesn't have to switch stances to gain access to it. So we've added a brief pause after using Shock Therapy before he can attack or use another ability. I believe I heard that the cooldown is going to be 3 seconds after he uses a shock before he can do anything else. One last thing we've addressed is the frustration of using Snap Out of It to drop from Madness Level 3 to Madness Level 2. After the update, missing a skill check during Snap Out of It will cost the player 25% of their progress instead of resetting it entirely. That's interesting. Also, if they stop the interaction before it's complete, they'll not lose their progress and will continue from where they left off on the next attempt. So you can save your snapping out of it progress. That's interesting. Well, as someone who's bad at finding survivors, can't find those blendettes hiding, I will admit that I quite enjoyed the passive madness of the Doctor making survivors reveal themselves. I can still do that. I just have to use my Static Blast button to make that happen. I think Static Blast, they said in the Q&A, is going to have a 60-second cooldown, that blast ability. So this is pretty interesting. We'll have to see where this goes. And we find out tomorrow. Next section of the designer notes, Hex Ruin and the Gatekeeper update. The upcoming mid-chapter update will also include a major overhaul to Hex Ruin and an associated update to the Gatekeeper Emblem. Recent data showed that Hex Ruin is used in over 80% of all games in the red ranks. Story checks out. And across the entire user base, it appears in about 45% of all games. That makes sense with what I'm seeing. It's often a surprise when there isn't a Ruin. You almost expect Ruin in games that I play all the time. We took a close look at the perk to identify what makes it so frustrating to play against, and 3 key issues were identified. Its punishment of new players, or those who can't hit great skill checks. Newer players try to help veterans with generator repairs and tend to make the situation worse rather than better. Yeah, if you're on the gen with me and you're blowing up the gen, I just leave. The passive nature of the gameplay pressure it provides means that there is a huge amount of potential with very little effort or risk on behalf of the killer. If the Ruin stays up the whole game and you have people who can't hit great skill checks, that can win the game for you by itself, without a doubt. Its inconsistency due to the random nature of the appearance interval of skill checks. I have done a complete gen while Ruin was active without getting a single skill check on numerous occasions. That's true. We also look carefully to see how it functions as part of the killer's loadout. Beyond the obvious desire to slow down generator repair, Hex Ruin functions as one of the very few perks effective at slowing generator repair in the first couple of minutes of the trial. This is important to killers' rankings because the Gatekeeper Emblem highly rewards keeping as many of the 7 generators incomplete as long as they can for as long as possible. Because Hex Ruin is one of the few tools a killer has for getting an iridescent Gatekeeper Emblem, the update needed to respect that. Just a straight up nerf without considering the consequences for that emblem wouldn't be a good plan. So before getting into the Hex Ruin change, let's go over the Gatekeeper Emblem. Currently, Gatekeeper's underlying points are scored as the number of points per generator remaining to be repaired multiplied by which minute the match is in. Additional points are scored for any remaining generators at the end of the trial. This provides much less of a reward to a killer who loses 3 generators quickly, but then doggedly keeps the last few until the end of the match. The new version of Gatekeeper is simpler. 1 point is scored per generator remaining to be repaired per minute for the first 9 minutes. At the end of the trial, if both exit gates remain closed, additional points are scored. With less focus on keeping 7 generators up, we can move on and change Hex Ruin without making it significantly harder for killers to do well in the Gatekeeper Emblem scoring category. The new Hex Ruin is simple. All generators are affected by Ruin. If a generator is not being worked on, it regresses at 100%, 150%, or 200% times the normal regression rate. Hex perk persists as long as the related Hex totem is standing. This version of the perk has many benefits. Survivors who are working on generators are unaffected as the perk no longer affects your skill checks. Killers must be active in pushing survivors off generators to get value from it. It is less useful in the early game, but very useful in the late game, and survivors now have a more interesting choice about when it is necessary to find and cleanse the Hex Totem. The changes outlined above, along with Larry's Memorial Institute rework, are slated for the mid-chapter update and will be available to test on the player test build starting tomorrow. Please be sure to let us know what you think once you've had a chance to try them out. Yes, let's back up a minute before everybody's like, oh my god, sky's falling, they're changing this thing and I don't like it. Remember, this is the public test build and it's being implemented just for that very reason, so that it can be tested and then the devs can see how it's working, if it's working the way they intended, or if they need to reevaluate any changes that they have come up with. So this is just a test. We'll see what happens. So it sounds like the Ruin is going to passively affect all the generators. They don't have to be kicked, right? I mean, it doesn't say, but I'm assuming that if I let go of a generator, it would just start to regress. If I go for a save, it would start to regress without anything being done to it. Not sure. We'll find out tomorrow how this works. But if that's the case, then it's interesting. So it allows the killer to apply pressure and make me go off my generator for a reason, a save or something, and then there will be natural regression. Because if you have to kick things to get this additional regression time, you can't be everywhere at once. And why wouldn't you just run pop then? So I'm thinking it must just passively affect all generators. All generators are affected by Ruin. So that makes it sound like you don't have to kick it. That it would just automatically regress if you leave the generator at twice the speed. So I can't like go get a save and then come back to my park gen and expect it to have the same progress that it did if it wasn't kicked. It will regress. So that's interesting. I mean, if it isn't that, then why would you run this? You would just keep Pop Goes the Weasel as a superior perk for things that you actually kick. It has to be affecting all generators. Well, we'll see how this works. I'm sure the big brains out there can come up with some synergy for this. But if you can't put pressure on, man, it seems like gens can go pretty fast at the beginning. You can't put pressure on people. We'll have to see how it works. So starting tomorrow, I've seen a few more patch notes than this. I don't know, what all I want to talk about. They are reworking the map. I want to see how many versions of that they have. And we'll go over all those patch notes tomorrow as they come out and see if there's anything else interesting in there that we can talk about. But I'm looking forward to it. And I'll do a day stream tomorrow, and we'll check out all of these changes live. So that's what I have for you today. Let me know what you think of these changes. I'm sure you will in the comments. But keep in mind that we haven't actually seen it in game yet to know 100% how it works. And this is a test version. But I do have some concerns about generator repair time here. So we'll just have to see how it works live. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a great day. Take care of each other out there in the fog. Bye-bye.